and welcome to what is probably my final update on the Honda CRF300L. Sorry, I've just noticed Kevin's still in shot, so I'll just get rid of him and then we'll make a start. There we go. So, hello and welcome to what is probably my final update on the Honda CRF300L. Before we get into that though, I'm going to provide some background context of how and why I came to own the bike, together with an overview of the type of riding I've been doing. That will then hopefully frame the observations and may be useful to you, whether you are deciding whether this is the bike for you or not. Essentially, as they say in marketing, I'm not going to be selling the steak here, but I may be selling the sizzle. So I've owned the bike for 18 months now, and before that I had a CRF300L for around 12 months. Now I'd class myself as a very average but enthusiastic trail rider, which in the UK effectively means riding green lanes. Now these are byways on which vehicular access is allowed, and they range from easy double track gravel through to snotty, muddy rucks and rocks and everything in between. Any vehicle using them does have to be road registered, taxed and insured, and in my neighbourhood at least, the green lanes are also relatively short, so a good ride out also involves quite a bit of tarmac. So basically, I need a bike that can do everything easily. Devil's Water, get in. So prior to owning the CRF, and I'm talking over 25 years ago now, I owned a number of enduro bikes: KDX 200, DR350, XR600R and an XR400R, and I did lots of trail riding in the Peak District in Wales and also a fair few time card enduros. Now I wasn't very good, to be honest. And I tended to finish midfield in sportsman class most of the time, but I also used the DR and the XR to ride overland to Morocco, the Middle East and Egypt. Excuse me while I have a sip of Devil's Water. Nice, that proper bloke's beer. Excuse me. Anyway, I took up trail riding again after moving to Northumberland a few years back. Originally on an old Honda Dominator before getting the CRF300L, as I wanted something a little bit more effective and lighter. And of course, when the 300L came out, the increase in power was too good to pass up, and certainly for the road it made the 300L much more usable and fun. Despite that, I still rate the 250L as one of the best bikes I've owned. So, since then, I've been happily exploring the beautiful green lanes here in Northumberland. And as I ride solo, I'm very careful about what I do and the risks I take and where I ride. And also, the last thing I need is a full-on enduro bike, so the soft-roader nature of the CRF makes it just perfect for me. I'm not racing anyone or anything, I simply want to ride in the countryside, explore and not upset anyone while I'm doing it. So that's me, and that's what I've been doing with the CRF300L, and I have to say I've enjoyed the bike thoroughly. Not only has it got me to some gloriously beautiful places, but poring over maps and then finding the green lanes always felt like an everyday, tiny but proper adventure. You know, stopping by a dry stone wall with a green lane full of cherry blossom, feeling the spring sunshine and listening to the tweeting of the birds. It's a simple yet fabulous experience, as is traversing a dried up riverbed with a rusting steel footbridge going across it, or coming over the brow of a green hill and seeing black clouds and a rainbow in the fields below. And there's a million more experiences just like that. But let's talk about the bike. You all know the basic specs. It's got a road bike engine from the CBR300R, albeit with altered gearing. It makes 28 horsepower, which for most UK trail riding is more than enough. And while the suspension is tall and has lots of travel, it is super soft. And even just sitting on it, it will compress to around 50%. I'd still argue that isn't a problem for most UK green lanes, as long as you're prepared to pick your way around situations carefully when you need to. Do a big jump or land heavily on the stock suspension and it will poleaxe you. I mean, remember the unhappy end of Edward II? Now the bike is cheap and obviously built down to a price. The frame paint is gossamer thin, some of the welding isn't great and the decals wear off quickly. Now if that's the kind of thing that winds you up, then you are going to get wound up. Either way though, any trail bike when it's being thrown at the countryside and it's getting covered in mud and snot and rocks is going to end up looking tatty, you know, whether it's a 12k KTM or a 6k Honda. So you add all that up and it doesn't sound like very much. However, this is a bike which takes you places reliably, confidently, and with tons of fun. The engine is just enough, the steering and controls are all very light, plus it's very well balanced when stood up. Sure, it's not dirt bike light, but you get a proper battery, you get lights and a dashboard combined with reliability and long service intervals. You just basically ride it, wash it, lube it, done. Now, stuff you must really add or change if you're serious about going off-road are the stock handlebars. You know, change them to something like Renthals, as otherwise when you will fall off, the stock bars could probably bend. You also need bark busters to protect your hands, the levers, plus a bash plate to protect the sump. And if you're really serious, get some knobblier tyres and then you're ready to go. I'd still argue that a suspension upgrade isn't mandatory, but bear in mind the type of riding I personally do and where I ride. Now, if you ride faster in more challenging terrain, then yes, get it changed. Now, I did upgrade mine to YSS front and rear and found it turned the bike into something that allowed me to be a touch more aggressive with obstacles, but it also made the bike feel a lot more sure-footed, and there's more info in a video that I did on this. So to sum up, it's the cheapest and most basic bike I own. It's got little of what you might call character as such, yet it's the bike that took me back to some very simple and life-affirming pleasures and experiences. I knew it would be a bike that I would keep forever until it or I blew up, and therein lies the crux of the matter. So a plated femur and a pinned knee, plus riding in and falling off in ruts and snot, for me just doesn't and couldn't work. Give it time, you say, and yeah, I will, but I think about the last 4 months, or the x-rays pop into my head, or the scars get itchy, and I know that even if I'm capable of riding off-road again, I will be riding to protect my plated leg. And riding protectively is absolutely not the thing to do off-road. It's not fun, and it's certainly not effective. Let's have a drink. So that's why, with great reluctance, the CRF really has to go. And because of everything I've just been speaking about, the CRF is the bike I'm going to miss the most. Which, for a cheap and basic bike, that perhaps says something, and that Honda really got this one right? Or is it that it's never really about the bike, it's actually what you do with it? So no, it's not the bike I'm going to miss, but it's the experiences it provided. Everyday adventures in the Northumberland countryside. It was positively life-affirming. Now, if that sounds like you, just go and get one and just breathe a little. You'll love it. So it's true. It is all about the sizzle and not the steak. And I'm a vegetarian. Bye. Recommended. Devil's water. Let's have a close-up. Look at that. Oh, and there's a hidden ending. Look at this. Jammy Dodgers. So I'm 1 year in on my Honda CRF300L, still having an absolutely blast. So I guess the question is, in summary, do I still feel as though I'm a jammy dodger? Well, let me see. Oh, look at these here. Jammy Dodger out on the trails. Yeah, absolutely. Cracking bike. Perfect biscuit. Jammy Dodger, CRF300L. Absolutely spot on.